So I'm Kevin.
I'm Neil.
We're two bored bartenders. Have a drink with us.
All right. Welcome to Sunday.
Yeah, as the months went by with nothing to do, we got lazier and made fewer videos.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah,
Not a lot of logic, but very true.
Yeah,
very true.
Finally found my microphone, so we'll see what the sound quality sounds like on this one.
Yeah, this one in theory is going to be a little nicer.
Yeah, when it gets to I'm to blame for that. Yes.
Yeah, I just I'm just the talent, and then I just walk away, and then he does all the work.
He's the face.
Yes. Yeah. Well.
So getting a little shaggier. We're starting to reopen bars here soon. This is now the first week of June. So
in theory, as soon as 6 days from now.
I'm already less bored as a bartender, so we're about to change the title of the show.
That's
Two
true.
Overworked Bartenders.
Yeah, that's gonna because it'll go from 0 to 60 pretty fucking quick. Yeah,
it's basically the zombie hordes are waiting to knock down the bar doors.
Yeah, though it is Palm Springs and it is going to be 112 now.
Sure.
So it might slow them down a little.
Might slow the tourists down a little bit. The locals though.
The locals they don't.
They're itching.
Oh,
they're itching.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
That is an understatement. Well,
covering two drinks today, both featuring honey as an ingredient, because neither one has a lot of history, and we thought we'd just do them both at once since it's basically the same recipe.
Yeah, basically the same cocktail, very different names, different presentation, and I think we'll get this one started. So.
We're going to start with the bee's knees, which is the real elephant's instinct, if you ask me.
The cat's meow.
The cat's meow. The cat's pajamas.
That elephant's instinct.
This is one of those Prohibition-era drinks. It's got a silly name. Bee's knees meant like the top or the best or whatever. The funny thing with this drink is it doesn't really have much of a history. It's been around forever. Nobody quite knows where it was invented, who invented it. It's lost to history, so to speak. Although it's not that hard of a cocktail to come up with. Just a little bit of honey syrup, some gin, some ice, and some lemon juice, and Bob's your uncle, as they say. Yeah. And we're going to start with a little bit of unfiltered craft honey. Because why not? And I mix this.
He harvested this himself. It's a long story. That's actually why there was a little lag in production. He was all just bee stings.
I was covered in bee stings.
It was disturbing.
Yeah, it was really
so I mean, just didn't feel he was fit for camera, So.
Am I ever fit for camera?
But now,
So again, this is about. I eyeballed this. This is about 2 to 1 to 1 to 1 honey. You can go a little heavier on the honey. It adds a lot of richness to the drink. Got a little bit of gin. We're going to do 2 ounces of gin,
which is always gin. You can never go wrong.
No.
And we've talked about it in a previous episode or so, but, revisit gin. Revisit gin. If you think you don't like it, you do.
Yeah, this drink, it's not in the Savoy cocktail book. I checked a few of them. It supposedly shows up in a couple of the more obscure cocktail books. But, it's kind of lost to history, but it's a classic.
And just in the lines of a traditional sour.
It is.
It's obviously you're stuffing
sour with honey. And the thing too with this is you don't need that egg white in here because the honey does a really great job of adding richness, adding frothiness, and it really kind of gives that drink the depth that egg white would normally provide. The honey also adds botanicals, so we use a nice honey. Try to avoid the bear. It works. But if you get something a little more floral, a little bit more artsy, your drink's really going to benefit from it, especially with a nice botanical gin, a lighter botanical gin. You can even use an aged gin in here, and it's lovely with an aged gin. We just didn't have one on hand.
Or like not to name drop, but there's an amazing gin from Bar Hill.
Oh, Bar Hill works.
That's actually, distilled.
Yeah, from Caledonia Spirits. Yeah, they sort of, I'm from New England, and they sort of made their name by being like the bee's knees gin.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't even. It's not over. Is it big over there on?
It's bigger on the East Coast. I feel like it got here later.
Yeah,
I've been working with it for about 10 years.
It's pretty recent that I even discovered it. So, but my cocktail venture's all been on this coast.
Yeah, It's you don't usually profess brands here, but that's definitely
Yeah, but it's just for that drink, it's one of those that's really.
I really like a nice aged gin. I don't have a lot of use for aged gin, but in the bee's knees, it's really nice. A couple other classic cocktails too, but this is one if you have something a little oak sitting around, this would be a great use for it.
Yeah, and then an aged gin if you're going to go that route. You think they're really more whiskey-esque. You know what I mean? They're more sipping gin. They've got a lot of different nuance.
I always think they pick up like the flavor of like a 2x4.
Yeah, that's well.
It's not like an oak. It takes on more of like a pine, like a yellow pine or something. I'm not a big fan of aged gins. I've had a few that I like. Don't get me wrong, but it's not my cup of tea. It's not the cat's pajamas.
It is not the bee's knees nor the cat's meow.
And this drink, you can see where it came from because during bathtub gin prohibition times, this would have been a really easy way to mask really terrible gin. Everybody had honey. Honey wasn't hard to find even in the 1920s. You could go down to your local neighborhood store and you could grab some honey. You could loosen it up with a little bit of hot water and some lemons, and you're in business. Yeah,
and it doesn't take much, to just, and it's not like making a traditional simple syrup with sugar where you're doing like a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, depending on what you want. This one, you just want to break it down enough to make it pliable. Mm-hmm. That's it. You don't need to, there's not a real science to it.
Yeah.
Can I pour it? I'm good.
Yeah, I find myself eyeballing honey syrup more than I would ever do with simple syrup.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't seem to, the richness is there, you're just trying to make it, again, so you can, pour it in a jigger, you can move it.
And the sweetness varies between honeys, I feel like, a little bit more than it would with white sugar,
Well, and if you want to really go down that, like a craft cocktail, I mean, you could have a whole menu of honey-based drinks.
You could.
With different honeys, and you could use the honey as all of your flavor. You'd go away from simple syrups and flavors. You could go down a honey path. You can
infuse honey.
Not that name for a bar.
The
honey path. Right there, trademark.
It sounds dirty.
Trademark. The honey path. Okay, yeah, I just thought that. I like that.
Went down the honey path last night. So staying in line with that, we're gonna do a drink called the Goldrush. This is another really popular drink with honey. So we got our honey syrup, about 3/4.
So you're getting a lot of different nuance with a bourbon versus a gin. So like we were talking about, the botanicals in the honey, the botanicals in the gin. There's a lot of great pairings, etc. You're not getting such a match, if you will, with the bourbon, but you are getting that great depth. And again, it's like making a sour. You don't need an egg white. You can, gives all that nice.
I'm not a big fan of whiskey and citrus generally, with a few exceptions. Paper Plane being one of them. Whiskey sour being another. This drink works because the honey takes up some of those really stringent notes that I think.
I'm sorry, those what?
Some of those astringent notes that I think that lemon juice brings out of whiskey. So the honey does a nice job of masking those. And this drink is funny because you would have thought it was from the 1800s, but supposedly this is Milk and Honey came up with this. There's really no record of it in any other cocktail book, so we'll give them credit where credit is due. I'm sure somebody at some point in Prohibition or somewhere along the line.
Seems unlikely that in 1931, 1922
somebody didn't put this together. But as far as modern cocktail history is concerned, it was Milk and Honey, early 2000s. This is one of their mainstays. Really easy to make, and so every bartender that read about it could make it at home. And one of the first craft cocktails I learned to make, and definitely a really nice, easygoing. We're doing it on the rocks. A lot of people like it on the rocks. I typically serve it up. But I definitely understand why people like it on the rocks.
Basically, always on the rocks over here. Primarily up.
Always up.
Always up. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. But always up over here.
Yeah.
Primarily up, but again,
I think it's
it'll
about
be on the
70-30. Yeah, I've seen this drink. I've seen it.
But just to mix it up and show a little, variance, so.
You ever make one with egg white? It's too much, right?
I have tried one. That somebody made, and it's almost overpowering.
I've done it.
Just an egg white sour. Yeah, that's all you need.
This is one of those I think the last abortive cocktail competition I was in, I did one with I infused it with some Earl Grey, and I think I was one of 3 out of the 10 of us that decided to make the exact same drink with Earl Grey. It's kind of an easy way out, but that's another great variation. You can add teas to these. You can add other herbs to it. You can make it your own. If you take the water that you use to mix the honey, if you take a little bit of the tea bag, make an extra strong tea, mix that in with the honey. Now you have like an oolong syrup or a green tea syrup, which I wouldn't recommend. It's a little bitter, but or an Earl Grey syrup is fabulous.
Yeah, and especially like I'd say the one that pairs the best kind of across the board is like the Earl Grey. Hits a lot of those notes with whiskeys, and it really helps. So
the bergamot really pairs well with lemon, and pairs well with gin, and actually pairs really well with whiskey.
Yeah, well, in bergamot, there's so many amazing just like bergamot liqueurs out there. They tend to be pricey, but you know what I mean. You can go down that route.
I'm a make it yourself kind of guy.
So, yeah, I know.
Do you like to do it yourself?
Well, quarantine, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, traditionally garnish with a lemon, possibly a zest. You might find this on a cocktail menu somewhere. They might just throw like a sprig of rosemary in there or something to give it a little bit different look.
When you have a three ingredient drink, you can really do anything you want with it. You can play it up any way you want. You can add thyme. Yeah. Any of the herbs de Provence, lavender, great, beautiful.
Well, we had a variation when I was up at the Ritz-Carlton that was with literally just a rosemary lemon syrup.
Sure.
And that was the drink.
It's almost cheating.
And it was so But it was just pretty and light.
Both of them, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Take a classic 3-ingredient drink, add an herb. You're in business.
Yeah, and it changes. It doesn't change the the structure, if you will. Just those nice little nuances.
You can go seasonal too.
Yeah,
like you want to brace yourself. And when it gets a little colder, use some herbs that are more like warming. You want the summertime, you want a more cooling herb. You can do that too.
Yeah. So, well, toast to honey.
To honey. Here's to the bees. That's nice.
Yeah, you just can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong.
More of a bee's knees fan, but
I would, if I'm having a whiskey sour, not with an egg white, I would prefer it with honey.
Sure.
Like if the you know what I mean?
It was simple syrup. Yeah. It's a beautiful drink. Yeah. It really is. It's just.
But yeah, this is
just more elegant.
Yeah. Great pool.
What time is it now? I think it's noon.
So it's noonish, So I don't really go by those rules that society put in front of us. But I can have a Manhattan at 8 a.m. I have that prerogative. So
yeah.
So
agreed. All right.
On that note, I think we'll wrap this episode up and
we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Cheers.